Hey there, thanks for joining me today. So before we jump into today's episode, I do want to let you know that today's topic is surrounding miscarriage. So if you've recently gone through one or are sensitive to the subject, I do want to let you know so you can proceed with caution. Thanks.
Because they were telling me that I would not sustain this pregnancy. I was 15 weeks along. They said that I would likely deliver within the next 24 to 48 hours. And I let out this wail, this scream, and thinking about it makes me emotional. But sorry. I was talking to my husband. I remember I was like, I can't do this again.
I'm very excited for today's guest. Not only will she be sharing her expertise in perinatal mental health, that will be in a couple weeks, but today she'll be sharing a very personal story about her experience with pregnancy, miscarriage, high-risk pregnancy, and ultimately her transition into motherhood. I have so much I could say about the strength that this woman carries, but without saying too much, I want you to be able to see for yourself. So here it is, my interview with Dr. Ashurina Ream, licensed psychologist and certified perinatal mental health care provider. And so I know when we talked previously, you said in your journey through fertility and through having your son, you had a lot of previous hardships and difficulties beforehand. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes. A big thing and a big part of my story is that, like I said, my husband and I have been together for 12 years. So what happens to couples when they've been together for so long? People are like, when are you guys going to have those kids, right? And I had gotten pregnant back in 2015 unexpectedly. It wasn't planned, but it wasn't like we were avoiding pregnancy. And I was over the moon. And I'm talking I was journaling every day to my unborn baby and writing notes and describing everything around us. And I didn't anticipate, and I never thought I would experience a miscarriage. And when it happened, I was just in shock, a lot of heartbreak. I can't really put words to that experience. It was a really, really hard thing for me. But what was even harder is that I didn't know I would experience multiple miscarriages. It would be my journey to continue with fertility struggles. And the next time I was pregnant, I was well, certainly I can't go through this again. It's just not, I can't have that bad of luck. It's kind of what I thought to myself. And at that point, 5 of my closest friends were all pregnant. And then I found out I was pregnant for the second time. I was excited, but kind of cautiously excited. And I made it a little further along than I was the first time. And then I started to bleed again. And I was just no, this can't happen. And if you've ever experienced struggles with fertility, it's this tug of war between you want to have hope. So I used to Google to see in all these forums to see if anybody had continued on with a successful pregnancy and the issues I was having. So I wanted to hold on to hope, but I was also so scared and sad. When I experienced my second miscarriage, I was just so angry. And I know I've shared about this a little bit before. I've written a blog about this as well, but I had a spiritual conflict for myself. I'm a person of faith. And for me, it was God, how could you let me go through this? That's what it felt like for me. I was broken. And at that point I was I don't want to even do this anymore. So I saw a number of doctors. I saw a fertility specialist. They had me, I went through several rounds of fertility treatment and I never got pregnant. And it's that dream that you have, it feels like it's getting further and further away. This is the craziest part about it. I stopped because I was I am done. I don't want to go through this anymore. I don't want to try anymore. I'm exhausted. And I really hated who it was turning me into. I was becoming this fertility obsessed person, managing everything. The next cycle, I actually became pregnant on my own. And I was oh gosh, I was this is not going to be good. And that's that's where I was at with that experience. And that led me to my, my pregnancy, my third pregnancy.
Wow. What were some of the, feelings and some of the things that you went through this third time?
I was really cynical. I was not, I don't want to say cynical because I guess the way to describe it is I was guarded. Any woman who's experienced loss knows that I don't want to celebrate because I'm afraid if I celebrate this, this dream, this whatever it is for me, it can be taken away from me so quickly. I was so scared. I think I hear this a lot from other women, and this was my experience. It's like every time you go to the bathroom, you're anticipating something awful is going to happen. And you don't want to connect to the pregnancy. Like I said previously, I was like writing in my journal to my unborn baby. And this time around, I was not. I was just like kind of going through the motions of, I'm pregnant. I want to be so excited, but I'm so scared to let my guard down. And that's really how it felt.
Where do you think you finally transitioned being like, okay, this is real?
My pregnancy was not easy. The first time I went to my doctor's appointment and then I got to hear my son's heartbeat, I was so overwhelmed with emotion because I was like, this is really happening. Like they're not gonna tell me something bad. When I made it into the second trimester, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this could be happening for me. And my pregnancy was riddled with complications. It made it really hard, but it was definitely a journey of trying to accept what was happening with me and my body.
Your pregnancy was anything but easy, and you said it ended up being a high-risk pregnancy. And so how early on were you told it was a high-risk pregnancy, and like what kind of things did you have to be aware of or do differently?
When I share this story like of my pregnancy, it still blows me away, and people are always like in shock that like this happened. But so I made it to the second trimester, and most people would think like I'm safe. I was 15 weeks and I started having a major bleed. So I had to go to the hospital. I went to the hospital and it was a bleed. So they were still like triaging me in the ER. I was like sitting on the exam table and my husband was there with me. And I was like, I have this like urge. Like, I think I might have to use the restroom. I don't know what it is. And I went to go stand up and there was like fluid all around me and all underneath me. And then, the providers that were there were like, oh my goodness. It was a nurse practitioner that was there. She was examining the fluid and she was like, I'm not certain, but it looks like you may have broken your bag of water. They had examined me. She did. She told me I was significantly effaced. I had to get an ultrasound, which said my fluid, my AFI was critically low. And it was the most traumatic event of my life to date because they were telling me like that I would not sustain this pregnancy. I was 15 weeks along. They said that I would likely deliver within the next 24 to 48 hours. And I let out this like wail, like this scream, and thinking about it makes me emotional, but sorry. I was talking to my husband. I remember I was like, I can't do this again. I didn't anticipate getting emotional today. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll just let it all out today.
But I told my husband, I was like, I can't do this again. I just can't. They took me up to like labor and delivery and they were prepping me to deliver. And it was like I couldn't hear anything. And people were like coming in and out. They're examining me. They're telling me all this stuff like about delivery and what it would look like. They kept me overnight and then they sent me home because nothing happened in 24 hours. And they were like, you're going to have this baby. So if you start going into labor at home, you're just going to have to come back to the ER because you're not far enough along. You're going to have to go to the ER. That was like so traumatic because I thought I'm going to go home and I'm going to have to be prepping for something so crazy. We got discharged. This nurse came in and she was so kind and amazing. And she like embraced me and she prayed over me. She asked me if it would be okay if she sat with me and prayed for me. And for me, it was fine. And I think like at that rate, you're just like, sure, I'm so desperate for anything. And she left and we went home and they were like, if you make it till Monday and you're pregnant, because this was the Friday, like you have to go see a specialist. So I made it till Monday and I was freaking out all weekend long, just like so panicked. I told my husband, you cannot leave my side. We just waited and we just sat around and I didn't want to move because I was so scared. And we made it to Monday. He took me to the doctor and we go to see the specialist. They were prepping me and I'm crying and they're like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Like the lady's about to do an ultrasound and I'm telling her what had happened at the hospital. And she's like, okay, well, there's still a baby here. There's still a heartbeat. Let's just take some deep breaths. We'll see the doctor and get back to see the doctor. And he's like, well, what are you guys here for? He was so confused. And we're trying to tell him and we're describing the situation. And he's like, your baby's fine. You're at like a normal level of amniotic fluid around the baby. Everything looks great. And we were just like, what? Like, we were just so bewildered. We were like, what? Like, what just happened to us? So everything, like, I went back to my doctor. They were like, this is a miracle. We don't know what happened. We don't know how it happened. We just don't know the answers, but we're going to try to continue on and try telling a woman that's been through all this, like, just continue on, like nothing ever happened. I was so cautious for the rest of my pregnancy. And I share a little bit on like social media and in my blog. I didn't rest until I heard my son let out that first scream in the delivery room. And then I was like, okay, this is going to happen. And I feel like I didn't rest until that point, until I actually got to hold him in my arms and really got to realize that I'm taking you home. This is happening. It was a wild, wild ride. That's for sure.
Thanks so much for watching part 1 of my interview with Dr. Ashurina Ream. Part 2 will be released next Wednesday, where she will dive deeper into the effects of high-risk pregnancy and her transition into motherhood. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mom Talks with Krista. If you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. It should be down here somewhere. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. And if you're not following us yet, be sure to follow us at Mommy Knows Best on Instagram. And remember, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you are a great mom. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.